Having $5 million sounds like the end of money problems. No rent panic, no grocery stress. No wondering if one bad month could wreck everything. So why do some people with $5 million still feel broke? In cities like New York or San Francisco, there's a strange joke. The poorest rich person is the $5 million millionaire. It sounds ridiculous, but there is a reason the joke lands. This kind of money doesn't make someone poor. It can, however, lock them into a life that is expensive to protect, awkward to downsize, and surprisingly hard to leave. Most people miss that part. This isn't about rich people whining. It's about why a huge number can still fail to buy the one thing people thought it would guarantee: peace of mind. And the first crack in that piece usually starts with comparison. Comparison is the fastest way to make a big number shrink. At the $5 million mark, someone is already far ahead of most Americans. On paper, they've made it. But the brain doesn't compare against national averages. It compares against whatever is nearby. A millionaire moves into a richer neighborhood, joins a different social circle, or spends enough time around founders and investors, and the scoreboard changes. The question quietly shifts. It's no longer, am I doing well? It becomes, why am I behind in this room? A nice house can seem ordinary when the neighbors are tearing theirs down to build something twice as big. A normal family vacation can seem modest when people around them talk about $30,000 trips like they're discussing a long weekend in Florida. Even a good school can start looking basic when every other parent has a private tutor, a coach, and a summer program lined up before February. Nothing dramatic happened to the bank balance. The room got richer. In one city, this level of wealth opens almost every door. In another, it barely gets someone past the lobby. But comparison is only the surface. Because once someone gets used to winning the money game, the scariest moment may not be losing. It may be realizing they don't know how to stop playing. For self-made millionaires, money is rarely just money. It becomes proof that the risk, stress, and missed weekends were not wasted. Picture a founder or executive who spent 20 years waking up to emails at 6 a.m., jumping from calls to meetings to flights, checking numbers at dinner, and treating every quiet afternoon like a problem that needed fixing. Then one day, the calendar opens up. No urgent deal. No board meeting. No team waiting for an answer. No next mountain already on the screen. Peaceful, right? Maybe for a week. After that, the silence can start to feel strange. The business, the deals, the packed calendar, the constant push, none of it was simply work. It was how they measured themselves. So even after they can afford to stop, many keep going. They consult. They invest. They start another company. They semi-retire, which often means working full-time with better vocabulary. Without the next target, the money has to answer a much harder question. Who are they when nobody needs them to win the next deal? That fear keeps some millionaires working long after the math says they could relax. And now we move to another trap. A high income can make someone look rich long before they're actually free. The dangerous version of wealth isn't having too little money. It's having a life that only works if the paycheck never stops. This is where the Henry mindset matters. High earner, not rich yet. A lot of $5 million households are no longer Henry on paper, but they may have spent years building their life during that stage. Doctors, lawyers, tech executives, consultants, business owners, people with incomes that look enormous, while the life attached to that income gets expensive fast. And sometimes, the lifestyle built during the high-income years survives long after the income itself starts to slow down. A bigger paycheck can hide the problem for years. The mortgage clears. The school bill gets paid. The taxes get paid. The retirement account gets funded. Everything looks fine because the machine is still running. Then, one day, the question changes. It's no longer, can this income cover the lifestyle? It becomes, can the wealth cover the lifestyle when the income slows down? That's where many people get caught. They aren't broke in the normal sense. They're dependent. dependent on the job staying strong, dependent on bonuses showing up, dependent on clients, contracts, markets, or a business continuing to produce at the same level. And when the income slows down, the lifestyle doesn't politely shrink with it. It keeps asking for money. At that point, the fortune starts acting less like a trophy and more like a replacement engine. The paycheck used to pull the whole life forward. Now the portfolio has to do the pulling, and retirement is where that math stops being theoretical. This is where the number gets translated into real life. A huge net worth sounds powerful as a headline, but retirement doesn't make headlines. It spends income. A common retirement rule says a person can withdraw about 4% of their portfolio in the first year, then adjust for inflation after that. 4% of a $5 million investable portfolio is $200,000 a year, but that word matters: portfolio. If part of the $5 million is trapped in a house, a business, or retirement accounts with tax bills attached, the usable income may be smaller than the headline number suggests. Even at the full $200,000, that sounds amazing. But for someone used to earning far more, it can feel like going from driving the car to watching the fuel gauge. Every choice starts carrying the same quiet question: can the portfolio handle this? During the working years, money kept arriving. In retirement, every withdrawal takes a small bite out of the pile that has to last for the rest of their life. So yes, the net worth may still be high, but the rhythm changes. Confidence used to come from income. Now it has to come from discipline. And discipline is a very different experience from freedom. The beach may look peaceful. The spreadsheet is the one sweating. At that point, fortune isn't a victory lap anymore. It's a countdown they have to manage carefully. But the withdrawal rate is only half the problem. The harder question is this: can the life they built actually shrink when the math says it should? The trap isn't the expensive lifestyle, it's the cost of backing out. At first, the choices look flexible. A better neighborhood, a better school, a bigger house, a calendar full of lessons, routines, and commitments. Then a few years pass, and those choices stop acting like choices. They become the family's operating system. So when someone says, just cut back, they're usually talking about a budget. The family is looking at everything that budget would disturb. Selling the house may mean leaving the only neighborhood the kids know. Changing schools may mean telling a child why their friends are staying and they aren't. Even changing the weekly schedule can feel bigger than it looks because the family's friendships, habits, and identity have quietly formed around it. Cutting spending is easy in a spreadsheet. Undoing a life isn't. So the spending continues longer than it should, even when the numbers are quietly asking for a change. Not because the family is trying to impress strangers, because turning around would mean admitting out loud that the old version of life no longer fits. And for many wealthy families, that conversation is harder than writing another check. So they keep the lifestyle running, even when caution would be smarter. And if the lifestyle can't slow down, the portfolio has to keep up, even during a bad market. The 4% rule answers one question: how much can they withdraw? But retirement has a second question that can be even more dangerous. What if they have to withdraw at the worst possible time? Imagine retiring on Monday. On paper, everything looks perfect. The money is saved, the house is settled, the plan is printed, and the advisor says you're good. Then by Friday, the market drops hard. A worker can usually ride that out. They complain, avoid checking the app for a few days, and keep collecting a paycheck. A retiree has a tougher problem. The portfolio now has to cover real life while it's already down. Groceries, travel, healthcare, the next 30 years. All of it's tied to investments that may be temporarily beaten up. And if money has to be pulled out during the drop, the damage gets locked in. A millionaire can choose a careful withdrawal rate and still get cornered by timing. This is called sequence of returns risk, which sounds boring until you realize what it means. The market doesn't have to destroy the whole fortune. It only has to hit at the wrong moment. Two retirees can start with the same amount and earn the same average return over time. If one gets strong years early and the other gets a crash early, their retirements can end very differently. Same money, same market, different order. And that order can decide who sleeps well and who checks the portfolio at 3 a.m. So when a wealthy retiree worries about a downturn, it's not always drama. The fear is painfully simple. What if they need cash right when the market is down? Now comes the part that makes this hard to talk about. This level of wealth is enough for people to assume the family is fine. It's not always enough for the family to stop calculating. Nobody is starving. Nobody is asking for sympathy. By any normal standard, they're wealthy. But money changes how people respond to your problems. If a middle-class family says, "We're worried about the future," people usually understand. If a millionaire family says the same thing, the room gets colder. The reaction is almost automatic. You'll be fine. And maybe they will be. But being dismissed doesn't make the decisions disappear. A bad year still has to be managed. A mistake still has consequences. This is the silence trap. They're rich enough that complaining sounds offensive, but not so rich that every concern is imaginary. So the worry stays private. It gets handled in late-night conversations, quiet meetings with advisors, and mental math nobody else wants to hear. And sometimes, the people who understand it least are the ones living closest to it, the kids. For the parents, the money may represent sacrifice. For the kids, it may simply look like normal life. That gap can scare wealthy families more than the market. A child doesn't see the 20 years of risk, stress, missed weekends, and difficult decisions behind the lifestyle. They only know the finished version. The nice house is normal. The help is normal. The options are normal. And once comfort becomes normal, limits can sound unfair. The parent may be thinking, "I worked 25 years to make this possible." The child may be thinking, "Why are we changing?" Here is the real fear. Not that the kids will be poor, that they will be unprepared. Because money can create a soft landing, but it can also hide the ground. Some wealthy parents worry that they have raised children inside a lifestyle the children may not be able to recreate on their own. If the family fortune shrinks, the next generation may lose more than money. They may lose the only version of adulthood they were taught to expect. By then, the question is no longer only about retirement. It's whether wealth built through discipline can survive a generation raised in comfort. By now, the pattern is clear. The number isn't the problem. The life attached to that number is doing too much. It has to replace a high income, fund retirement, survive bad markets, support the family, and still leave the next generation standing. That is a lot for one balance sheet. And yes, most people would love to have that problem. Fair. A fortune like this absolutely changes a life. It can buy time, choices, comfort, better care, better options, and a lot fewer emergencies. Nobody should pretend otherwise. But the warning is simple. Money doesn't create peace if the lifestyle keeps demanding perfection. Perfect markets, perfect health, perfect family decisions. Nobody gets all of that forever. So maybe the better question isn't, is this enough? It's, enough for what kind of life? Because the goal isn't only to become richer, it's to build a life that can survive an imperfect year without falling apart. And now, I want to hear your answer. Is $5 million still rich in America? Or has it become the new upper middle class safety net? Would it make you feel free? Or would you still be checking the spreadsheet at night? Drop your take in the comments, because I have a feeling this one is going to split the room. And if this video made you look at wealth a little differently, hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.